The first time I met my wife's other husband, I did not know that was who he was. I just thought he was a stranger asking me for directions outside a gas station 2 hours from my home. He had kind eyes and a nervous smile, and he asked if I knew a woman named Rachel who lived nearby. My blood went cold because Rachel is my wife's name, and she told me she was 2 hours away visiting her sick aunt. I told him I did not know anyone by that name, and I got in my car and drove away shaking. My name is Daniel, I am 34 years old, and until that moment I believed I had a normal marriage. Rachel and I had been together for 9 years. We had 2 kids, a mortgage, and what I thought was a solid, quiet kind of love. But something about that man's face would not leave me alone. I did not confront Rachel right away. Instead, I did something I never thought I would do. I followed her the next time she said she was visiting her aunt. I told my sister I needed her to cover for me with the kids, and I drove 2 hours behind my own wife, staying far enough back that she would never notice. She did not go to any aunt's house. She pulled into a neighborhood with tidy lawns and pulled into the driveway of a house I had never seen before. A man walked out to greet her, the same man from the gas station, and he kissed her like she belonged to him. 2 children ran out behind him calling her mom. I sat in my car for 20 minutes just staring, feeling like the entire structure of my life had been quietly hollowed out from the inside. My wife had another family. Another husband. Other children who called her mom just like mine did. She was living a double life, splitting herself between 2 houses, 2 men, and 2 sets of children who had no idea the other existed. I did not storm up to the door. I did not scream or cry in that driveway. Instead I drove home in complete silence, and for the first time since I met her, I started thinking like a stranger looking in from the outside instead of a husband desperately looking for excuses. I kept replaying the sound of those children's voices calling her mom, wondering how many birthdays, how many holidays, and how many quiet Tuesday nights she had split perfectly between 2 lives without either side ever suspecting a thing. Over the following weeks I gathered everything quietly. I checked bank statements and found an account I did not recognize, one that received deposits I had never questioned before. I found hotel receipts disguised as work conferences. I found a second phone hidden in the lining of her makeup bag, and inside it were months of messages between her and the man from the gas station, whose name was Mark. Mark believed Rachel was his wife too. They had been legally married for 6 years under her mother's maiden name, a detail I only discovered after paying a private investigator to dig into records I could not access on my own. Rachel had built an entire second identity, complete with a marriage license, a joint bank account, and a mortgage under a name that was technically hers but not the one on our own marriage certificate. The investigator told me he had rarely seen someone maintain a double life this cleanly, with separate insurance policies, separate school records for the children, and even a separate group of friends who had never once crossed paths with anyone from my side of her world. When I finally understood the size of what she had done, I realized this was not simple cheating. This was marriage fraud. She was legally married to 2 men at once, which meant our own marriage might be sitting on a foundation of criminal deception. I spoke to a lawyer who explained that bigamy is a crime, and depending on the state, it could mean fraud charges, voided contracts, and serious financial consequences for the person committing it. I did not tell Rachel what I knew. Instead I played along, acting distant but not suspicious, buying myself time to build an airtight case. I collected every document, every text message screenshot, every bank record, and every piece of evidence that proved she had built an entire secret family 2 hours away while pretending to grieve for a sick aunt who, as it turned out, did not even live in that town. The hardest part was reaching out to Mark. I debated it for days, terrified of destroying another family the same way mine was about to be destroyed. But he deserved the truth just as much as I did. I sent him a message with copies of the evidence, gentle but direct, explaining who I was and what I had found. His response came within an hour, and I could feel the shock and heartbreak through the screen. He had no idea Rachel had another husband. He believed their marriage was real and their children were growing up in a stable, loving home. When he called me, his voice was shaking. We talked for over 2 hours, two strangers connected by the same woman's lies, comparing timelines and piecing together just how long this had been going on. It had started before either of us knew, meaning Rachel had been living this double life almost from the very beginning of both relationships. Together, Mark and I decided the only way forward was to confront her at the same time, in the same place, so she could not spin one story to one husband and a different story to the other. We arranged everything through our lawyers first, making sure our financial protections were locked in before she ever knew we had found each other. The day we confronted her, Rachel walked into what she thought was a quiet dinner with me at a restaurant near our house. Instead, she found Mark sitting at the table too, along with both of our lawyers. Her face went white. For a moment she tried to deny everything, insisting Mark and I must be confused, but the moment I placed the folder of evidence on the table, her composure shattered completely. She started crying, saying she never meant to hurt anyone, that she loved both of us in different ways, that she felt trapped and needed an escape and somehow ended up building an entire life around it. She said the second life started small, a few visits to an old friend that turned into something more, and that once it began she felt too afraid to unravel either side without losing everything. I understood, in a strange and painful way, that she was not a cartoon villain. She was a woman who made catastrophic choices out of fear, dissatisfaction, and an inability to be honest with either of us. But understanding her true motivation did not erase 9 years of quiet, calculated deception. The legal aftermath was swift. Because her second marriage to Mark was proven to be bigamous, it was declared void, protecting his assets and giving him full custody rights over their children without her interference. My own marriage to Rachel was annulled rather than simply divorced, since her fraudulent documentation gave us legal grounds beyond a normal divorce. This meant I was not liable for supporting her the way a standard divorce might require, and the financial protections we had built ahead of time meant my children and I kept our home without any complications. Rachel faced criminal charges for bigamy and financial fraud, since she had used forged identification to secure loans in her secret alternate name. The court ordered her to pay restitution, and she lost custody rights in both households due to the deception and instability she had created for 4 children who suddenly had to process the fact that their mother had been living an elaborate double life. Mark and I, oddly enough, became friends. Not close friends, but two men who understood exactly what the other had gone through, bonded by a betrayal neither of us saw coming. We helped each other navigate lawyers, custody arrangements, and the slow process of explaining to our children why mom would not be coming home the way she used to. A year later, my life looks nothing like it used to, but in many ways it looks better. My kids are adjusting. I am dating again, slowly, cautiously, but with a clearer sense of what honesty actually looks like. Rachel, last I heard, was living alone in a small apartment, working to pay off her restitution, estranged from both families she once tried to keep separate. Sometimes I think back to that gas station, to the stranger who unknowingly handed me the first thread of a lie that unraveled my entire life. If Mark had never asked me that question, I might still be living in ignorance today. Instead, karma found its way through the most unexpected door, and both of us walked out stronger, wiser, and finally free from a woman who thought she could have two families and never get caught.